because that was a key concern that we have in Schneider, and I heard a lot of us talking about that. And I'm not going to say there is one approach across the population, across different ladders, across different levels of management. There are certain approaches that we have, and we give our people experience on all the 3 E's. So it's not just training that we emphasize, but also the kind of exposure and the experience that we give to our people. So we have a very robust assessment methodology. Every line manager is involved.
Skills,
yes,
right?
so that's more.
Skills.
Yeah, exactly. So these are 2 things which we can, which we offer.
So I understand that assessment is for saying, can he grow in as a people manager or as in a technical atmosphere. Those are the skill, assessments that you do. Then subsequently for upskilling, reskilling, do you have courses or
which was the first part which I addressed, that yes, we do have. We've tied up with a lot of agencies. In fact, we also work very closely with academia. So especially in the R&D sector, we've tied up with a lot of the institutes whereby we are involved in the course curriculum. How do we design that so that they become much more productive for us from day one? We're also involved in the laboratory setup. So these are things that we have been doing already in Schneider.
Yeah. Can I just?
Yes, definitely.
A conceptually slightly different perspective from what Manmohan and Niharika said. It's a comment.
Yes.
I think till 2000, the whole concept of career development and leadership development was a little bit different. That's how I perceive. I think when you're talking about a career development, okay, you see what are your strengths, what is the areas of development, and then focus was more on the areas of development rather than building on strengths. That has gone through a change. And the second aspect, which they've said it to a large extent right, but there is a minor tweak to it. You said development is your own responsibility, employees has to take the responsibility, but it doesn't end there. I think, you can't just say alone that you are responsible for your career and keep quiet, because you can't see career development in isolation. It should be seen in conjunction with the leadership development. I think one of the questions what the leaders will ask, I just want to relate that as an anecdote. For me, it happened way back in '92 when I was in SmithKline Beecham. I went to London along with meet my international director and group director. I was not heading the function. And my boss was retiring. I didn't realize, I was not very conscious about it. My boss took him to the group HR director, global HR director. So we had exchange of pleasantries. Then, my boss got up and I was also getting up. I thought this was over. He asked me to sit. Then India was going through changes, 92, 93. He started talking about business, India, what's happening, liberalization and so on. Then I realized he was really literally interviewing me. And he asked me one question which is very relevant and germane. He said, Dwarka, you've been with the company now for 15 years in the corporate HR. How many people you have developed? Who were they earlier? What are they today? And how did you develop? I didn't have an answer because I must have done it, but I have not done it in a robust, systematic, in a planned fashion. So I think, it's one thing to say that the career development is the responsibility of the person. There is no doubt. It's not just responsibility of HR. But they are the enablers, as Manmohan said. But you can't leave that statement alone there. I think it's the responsibility of the manager also to ensure that if you are as a leader, if you don't ensure that, then there is no leadership pipeline. And there is no proper succession development, because career development also needs to go with the leadership development. So I think when you're talking the human capital structure or the architect, I think you need to put all those pieces in such a fashion. They work together in a symbiotic fashion rather than in a disjointed version. Sometimes what happens, I'm LD. My job is to do only learning and development. Somebody will look after the PMS. Somebody will look after, you have to see the totality into picture. Again, how you need to develop, as Arun said, you have the advantage, in old days, SmithKline Beecham, we used to set up, MBA is one aspect. I'm not talking at MBAs. We're talking at different levels of career, one at the grassroots levels or at the entry levels, one is the middle level and one is the senior level. I think Arun very rightly said the challenges starts coming in from middle and above. Till that time you can always get. One of the things to answer your question is just to see why people would not like to take a vertical move. Horizontal move. One of the things, you put in 7 years, 10 years as an HR, worked in, and now you said go to the vertical move to the sales. Oh, he said, what will happen to my career if I do not stay in this company? My CV will become useless. Yeah, I need to hang on. Give sales, give HR, or give sales training. You know, these are the things, because we see it, we don't see the career in totality. We see the career, you know, in the short-term basis. When you don't make the career in a long-term basis, I mean, you know, Smithline old days used to have 2 plus 2 plus 2. That means if you want to really make a business leader, you need to work in 2 functions, you need to work in 2 businesses, you need to work in 2 countries. You see, you have, I mean, for a conglomerate, it's like max, it would be different. But I think you need to create, and then you need to give an assurance you have been trained. You know, this is where the distance learning and all. You may not have the sales management per se experience, you may be MBA, but we'll give you that sort of inputs to make you ensure that you become a rounded manager who can take a much higher responsibility in the future. Don't stake your career for a short-term purposes and a long-term career. I think these are the messages I feel it's very important. I think because there is a hesitance for the people to move, especially middle senior level. If you say HR director move into the sales director, I will be very reluctant to do it. But you know, if you just see that Max has done it very recently. I know I've just retired on 30th April. I mean, this lady has been there for 1 year. We said it's important brand building. I thought we were going to talk about brand building. I talked about brand building, excellent marketing, but you know, he said business and international experience, but we need a good HR functional support to give it to her, but to take the role of a brand as an organization, as a brand, and also manage human capital. So these are the aspects, you know, innovations sometimes to take. But people also should willing to take risks. Nobody would take risks unless, you know, a company supports them with a good architecture. And also, if you fail here, doesn't matter, your career is not there, still you have a backup. We value you and we care for you. Those are the messages I think which is important. Where you have, you know, it always happens. I mean, there are many organizations, especially in FMCG, MNCs, have done it very successfully, and it can happen.
I guess we have an
Yes.
example on the right of
Yes.
a
Yes.
lateral move. I guess you were in sales earlier and you are in HR now. So I guess it's happening in auto also.
It is. It is.
The two
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to just build further on
Yeah.
this. So I think it's really important to firstly see who's building whom in the organization, just building on the point that was made. I think it's also important to segment your talent population into your high potentials and who are your solid contributors and professionals, and have different development roadmaps for each of them. And I think a large myth around learning being just structured and classroom is broken in most organizations to looking at a blended learning of experiences, that the roles provide, what you learn in a structured manner. And I think development is a lot about your high potentials developing your other junior high potentials. The credibility that comes from this type of a learning system is very, very high. And finally, all this development in the organizations is happening because you want to grow leaders from inside. You also need to decide at which level, depending on your business and market dynamics, you want infusion of fresh talent from outside. Whether it's a fresh level or mid-level or lower senior level, that has to be decided. Having said that, it's all for the purpose of growing leaders and having a good leadership pipeline in the organization. So, while it is the responsibility of the employee to take charge of their development and career, having systems which support them do that, and having clear-cut, you know, succession planning processes and career systems where you can grow these people and have clarity around how is a person going to move. And I'm speaking from my experience not only of Aircel but also some of the other organizations I've worked in like Microsoft, IBM, Escotel, where succession planning index was clearly measured for a leader when the leader was to grow. So do you have 1 or 2 people in your team that are ready to take your role or not? And that index having been calculated was an important part of how you got assessed. The other phenomena is that you might have all these systems in place, but when practically it comes to implementing it, the hypo is sitting on the succession slate and somebody else got a chance to play the role. And it's just nobody intends to do it, but practically these things happen. So there was an introduction of a succession planning usability index, that are we really using our high potentials and moving them where we want to move post all the development inputs that have been, or efforts that have been put in. I think it's really important to focus on this fact of leaders building leaders in the organization, and as an organization and leadership team to be able to take the risk of growing leaders from within. The other thing I think which differentiates great practices from mediocre practices is when there is an opportunity, are you ready to take the risk to put your 60-70% ready talent into that role versus assessing somebody in 5 rounds of interviews and taking that person. So these are probably some of the things we need to focus on if we need to have a development culminating into careers of employees. One point that I specifically want to mention which partners with academia. So in Aircel we've done these development and blended learning, not just structured learning but blended learning of experiences and mentoring and everything included into one in partnership with Harvard and Duke universities. So which has helped us get practical aspects of leaders as well as, and I think many organizations would be doing it. Particularly to handle the aspect of retention, way back 7-8 years back we had actually introduced in one of my organizations, Escotel, we had introduced these master's program for the engineers in tie-up with BITS Pilani, and the retention was not around the the bond or the certification. It was really an MOU which did not allow you to continue without taking a no objection from the organization, which was this organization. So this is a very experienced and practical thing that we saw. Our attrition fell from 10 to 0.8% in that particular pilot circle. Now I'm sure this is a function of the life phase of that organization, what was happening in the industry, and this program, and just not the program. So clearly you have to apply it keeping all these aspects in mind, but experimenting with that has also had its own successes.
So really two things. A lot of companies do it slightly differently. They call it the mentoring, process. Maruti has mentoring, right?
Yeah, sure. We have a mentoring process.
Yes.
All the new joinees that get in, we do provide mentoring support, or what do you call it, a buddy.
I want to stop you. See, one of the things I wanted to add here is, I'm not going to name, there was this IT services company, HR person, who actually bragged to me 2 years back, we got a lot of people from Maruti with 2 years experience.
We must have groomed them well.
Why, I mean, just to put it in a lighter vein, why here out of the panel of 8 Times have brought 4 from one company, GSK?
Yes.
Okay.
So GSK
At different
is
parts of time. Niharika's, and of course, he's the HR head and past and so on.
close competition. I just wanted to join a little bit different issues with what Mr. Dwarkanath was saying. About job rotation, we have this concept of affinity area. So if a person is working in sales and he gets job rotated to marketing, it's an affinity area. Then you can head marketing and sales.
Yes.
But if it is a non-affinity area,
Absolutely.
from technical to commercial, or it's a big shift, there, like you're saying, HR and sales is in fact a big challenge, and I would agree with him.
Yes.
We also have developmental tracks. What we do is we give different career tracks. So there are the people who move on a slow track, there are people who move on a fast track. The high post can move on a fast track. So therefore, if a person is moving on a fast track, he'll get better benefits, he'll get a better vertical growth. But we also have this concept of specialists. So if people are working in R&D area and they cannot grow in a managerial level, there was a example of doctors wanting to operate and not wanting to fill up performance appraisals of others. We have this specialist track where people do not have to have managerial responsibilities, but they will still move up vertically in terms of salary grades and the external designation if they're in a specialized area like research and development. So therefore there is a growth path for those people also who would not necessarily become general managers or management in general area. Talking about higher education, we've provided a little bit. I would like to go back and say, when we get people who join us, I think this has been my observation, that academic excellence is more of an IQ activity, more of an individual activity. It's an excellence that you get by doing whatever you can. So it's a personal effectiveness. not an interpersonal effectiveness area. But as you join a corporate, what becomes more critical is your capability, how you handle others, and how you handle your relationships, and you grow there. So when we get new joiners coming in, I think that's one gap area we find, that people who have excelled all their life need not necessarily come and excel in corporate because of this switch, and whether they realize that the game has changed. So in our induction process, we put a lot of stress on the soft skills, telling that how do you get into a team, how do you get accepted by your team, and getting accepted means first accepting. So accept first before getting accepted. So all those goes into our soft skill training. So that's one part that we do, and we also give a good on-the-job training. Therefore, for our GETs, we do it for almost a period of, out of 12 months, 4 months of induction, 8 months is on-the-job training, settling down time. MBS also we give them 4 months, settling down time. Joining from the colleges into the corporate, the whole game has changed. Time to sink in, time to realize, and I think we do a lot of developmental programs, soft skill programs, business programs, and therefore we are talking about a lot of people with 2 years experience having gone from Maruti, because I think we do put a lot of effort in developing them.
And these are in-house programs, or do you tie up and have companies like Rachna's?
For the technical programs, all are in-house. For the behavioral programs, we have outside service providers, but with whom we actually co-design, co-create.
That has a direct reflection. Have you noticed that the attrition is dropping, or am I being too optimistic?
No, attrition has reduced in the last 1 year,
Okay.
but I would say I think
So the reason why
across the industries, it is
that
more
is
to do
probably
with
because the market situation,
correct.
the economy
It's more with the tougher market situation.
See, the reason why I asked this question, Jaideep, is somewhere that means even though the training is being given, the expectation that you have from the academia or from the trainer or whoever, somewhere probably there is a misfit. Do you feel that? Is that the reason why they are quitting?
See,
if
first
they are
of all,
able to see their career, this is how it is going to go. You have a mentorship program which is very successful.
I would just like to explain. The industry levels of attrition is somewhere around, for us, is about 12 to 14%. And we are somewhere across the company around 8%. If I look at my target group of younger population, we are around 12%. So as far as industry is concerned, we are doing well. But having 12,000 people and a large base of people, the base is larger. Therefore, even though the percentage is smaller, we do lose large bulk of people. So the bulk is that is there. The mentoring and the buddy system that we have developed, we find that it helps people settle down. But people move out because they have different aspirations, and the aspiration levels are something that we need to sort of educate and bring to ground realities, because that sort of career growth what you're expecting in a short time is perhaps not possible. Also, a lot of engineers do not want to remain in engineering, and that becomes a challenge. You are an engineer, but you do not want to continue being an engineer. So you want to you don't want to work on a shop floor where you're line in charge and it's hot out there and handling labor, and you'd rather be in an office which is air conditioned and do a soft
be a programmer
job.
and AC air
So
conditioned.
those are the challenges that